I'm Skip Prichard, president of OCLC. It's nice to see everyone here. How many of you, be honest, had a Powerball ticket and are very disappointed? I thought this was going to be a great day for libraries somewhere, but we are confident that you'll win the next round. So, two hunters were in the woods when one of them collapsed. And the other hunter got panicked, and he's checking him, he's not breathing, and he grabs the phone and he calls 911. And he's panicked. And he says, "My friend is dead, what do I do?" And the 911 operator, they're so skilled, says, "Calm down, take a deep breath. First, let's make sure he's dead." There's a pause, and then a shot. And he gets back on the phone and he says, "Okay, now what?" Author Bernard Mars has that on his website talking about data. And apparently that is the funniest joke there is. I don't know if I believe that. I didn't when I read it. But it is the funniest joke. In 2002, the Laugh Lab crowdsourced 1.5 million people rating 40,000 jokes, and that was the winner. Big data at its best, or at its worst, depending on how you feel about the joke. Well, we're here to talk about big data. And today we live in a world that everything is connected. Everything is transforming industries with big data. Communications, transportation, education, utilities. It's very, very important, obviously, to us as consumers, but it's also important to libraries. And it's important to our cooperative. For example, I think we've all gotten used to the term big data, haven't we? In Gartner's 2014 Hype Cycle report, big data was listed as going over the peak of expectations, inflated expectations. It was headed down to the trough of disillusionment. And if you're not familiar with the hype cycle, it's a way that Gartner has tracked for years terms, new technology ideas from innovation to experimentation, disillusionment to productivity. And by the end of 2014, we'd seen all kinds of articles and stories about big data. And the technology was well on its way to that trough of wherever overhyped expectations go to die. But then something else happened. By 2015, as you can see, big data moved completely off of the curve. It's just not there. And while we can take that to mean that very rapidly big data coasted through the trough of disillusionment, up the slope of enlightenment into the plateau of productivity, we can see some items here like machine learning and natural language question answering and augmented reality. They're there, and that all of those terms, they rely on big data. But use of large data sets has become kind of a utility, right? It's kind of just part of the air that we breathe. And we no longer consider big data emerging or an emerging technology. You can see from Google Trends that the search term pretty much peaked in 2015 for the term big data. In fact, we've gotten almost bored, right, talking about big data. What does it mean? Recently, Forbes put together a big list, big data facts, the facts that everyone must read. And many of them are kind of the, big numbers. We're so used to seeing that people trot out at these conferences, right? You've seen these before. I've seen them so many times, and they're just they almost lost their punch, like the first one that they had, which was, more data has been created in the past 2 years than in the entire history of the human race. Have you heard that one? Right? Or they give the Facebook stats. Over 1 billion people use Facebook in a single day. This one I didn't know that in 2015, 1 trillion photos were taken. And by 2017, nearly 80% of all the photographs taken will be taken on what? Smartphones. And all of that's interesting. Those are interesting facts. People trot them out at conferences to impress and dazzle. But after a while, it kind of gets dull. It kind of becomes boring. We get it, right? Big data, lots of data everywhere. We get it. But there's one thing that I thought was not boring. It's the final fact on the Forbes list, the one that truly everyone should read. And that's this. less than 0.5% of all data is ever analyzed and used. I think that's pretty incredible. Less than 0.5% of all data is ever analyzed and used. That, to me, is just startling. So we're collecting all this data. It's across so many areas of our lives. We're getting data, but we're not examining it. We're not exploring it. We're not studying it. We're not doing anything with it. So that's a shame, obviously. There's ways that we can take data that's already been collected and examine that data with new tools and new technology, and with that, make new discoveries. For example, marine biologists have been mystified for decades over what they call the paradox of the plankton. How many of you came to this brunch because you wanted to figure out and understand the mystery of the paradox of the plankton? Admit it. I see a few hands, right? Paradox of the plankton. So this is one of those little guys, plankton. And the paradox is that many types of plankton exist in environments where, according to evolutionary theory, only one type should dominate, since they're all in competition for the same resources. But new advances in RNA sequencing allowed researchers to study 55-year-old biological samples, and they made a startling discovery. These different species use different methods to extract their nutrients. So because they use different methods to extract their nutrients, rather than being in competition, they're actually sharing resources. I think this is one of the arguments why sustained long-term data conservation and data librarianship is so important. We never know what piece of data might help solve a decades-old puzzle. And that's what we're here to talk about today, turning data into useful insights for our libraries, into useful insights for our members. I know that for libraries, the idea of data collection is always intertwined with privacy, and that's important. And I'm a personal privacy advocate myself. But we need to keep a couple of things in mind as we do this. First is that there's now, among consumers, a growing expectation that this personal data will be collected in some instances and used to improve service quality. And we need to provide similar results, but we need to do it within the framework of professional boundaries. And second, there are some types of data, many types of data, we can collect that in no way impact privacy concerns. So we're going to talk a little bit and share some examples of that today. So today, how can we take our data, study it for insights, and then take it into action? We have two next speakers today who are going to show some specific ways that OCLC members are doing just that and what the impact of that is today.